after the third part of Bad Guys, with a budget of $90 million, grossed $426 at the box office. The question of the sequel became the statement we are shooting. And now, after just one American presidential term, the fourth part is released called Bad Guys Ride or Die. Although the original name was clearly invented by Dominic Toretto. And this part also performed well at the box office, which means Mike Lowrey and Marcus Burnett are with us for a long time. The movie itself starts briskly at maximum steepness. Even slightly older cops' friends are late for the wedding. For Mike's wedding. But fuck him if he's like an eternal goofball. He can't even come to his wedding on time. She also lets Marcus go into the store to get some water. And when he's running out of time, he's also distracted by a snack, as if he's never seen a hot dog. And the robber who appeared, as if he had arrived from the past, since he is still robbing shops with an open face, when cameras are already everywhere. Also, like a moron, he stood and listened while the Kents talked a lot. And Mike, who's having a wedding and he's supposed to be on the weekend, still carries a gun with him. Is this where his wedding is taking place, that he will need a gun there? Well, or you can't trample on the gene, and you should always have a gun with you. There was a banquet at which Marcus, as his best friend, right in front of everyone and Mike's wife, begins to drain all his exes. Handsome, I think this is the best wedding gift, and now Mike will not count envelopes with the money he gave at night, but justify himself where and with which woman he was messing around. And while everyone is dancing and throwing free booze, the main characters are introduced into the plot. A prosecutor named Lockwood, who doesn't look like he's a dick at all. Mike's boss Rita, who's messing with the prosecutor. And Judy, the daughter of the late Captain Howard, who was killed by Mike Armin's son in the last part. And Judy, in order to be useful to the plot, is not engaged in marathons of desires, but a real federal marshal. Well, so that the young people don't get bored on their honeymoon, Marcus gives them a cool gift. Well, to stretch the plot, Marcus comes up with a heart attack which will not affect anything at all. And as soon as he came to his senses in the hospital, without any doctor's recommendations and a complete misunderstanding of what happened to him, he cuts off important medical equipment from himself and goes to the roof to suffer bullshit. And while a complete ass is going on the screen, one serious man Magrite decides to frame the late Captain Howard and politely asks the accountant of the drug cartel to transfer 20 lakhs about the captain. It's strange, but why did Magrite's bull immediately shoot when the accountant only slightly objected? It has always been interesting how the assistants understand when it is necessary to escalate the situation. A Magrite flies here and tells the bull, listen, if he immediately refuses to give the password, you do it, shoot someone there. And the accountant of the whole cartel accepted a dangerous type without a second thought, without even worrying about his safety, to strengthen security there or disarm the guests. Damn, he works in the criminal world with scumbags. But he's naive as a child, and as soon as he transferred the money, he immediately goes to the grave, and Magrite knocks down his mistress right on his lap. It probably just drags when blood and brains fly straight into the face and the ringing in the ears is from a close shot. Well, for Marcus, the 3-day coma did not go away without a trace. Firstly, he will not find out that he has another wife, because from the first to the third part she was played by Teresa Randall. And now there's Tasha Smith. And secondly, he somehow does not mind that his son-in-law lives in his house, with whom he constantly fights. By the way, this is the same Cord that started dating Marcus's daughter back in the second part, and whom the men fucked and intimidated so much that anyone would have sent such a family to fuck. And only Mike learns from the news that the FBI has already opened a case against the dead captain. How he and Marcus, being simple cops, brazenly break into a meeting of high-ranking officials, and how small children begin to defend the captain, and cover not with facts and irrefutable evidence, but purely put pressure on pity. But the investigation team led by the prosecutor has not only empty words on their hands, like Mike's, but Mike continues to behave like a teenager, counting only on show-offs. Well, here are the grounds for suspension and to start checking against a policeman who was close to the captain and promises to obstruct justice, but the bigwigs don't seem to notice this. Immediately, without knocking or permission, Captain Judy's daughter also bursts in and asks for information about her father in a blue eye. How simple everything is here, like 3 pennies, an ordinary federal marshal whose task is to control the execution of court sentences, search and arrest federal criminals, asks from another department for documents on a serious criminal case like a book from a library, and in between shows Mike that he has a shitty son. If there are still such insults against Mike, then why did they come to his wedding, devour for free and give an empty envelope? Well, once the captain is hung up to work with the cartel, Mike goes to his son, who worked for the cartel, and permission to meet with a dangerous terrorist, of course, is not needed. Some 2 left-wing cops from Miami came and immediately please communicate, and the son spent 4 years on a bunk, did not waste time, and pumped his intelligence through son. Please help the folder. Armando leaks that the captain was ordered to him, since Cap dug up evidence on U.S. officials working with the cartel, and Armando will be able to identify the customer, so we need to arrange parole. And while the men are thinking how to pull it off, McBride and the brigade just now decided to hack the captain's personal laptop, where, attention, he installed protection in which if the computer is hacked, then automatically Mike and Marcus will be sent a template video message of the character's exiled act. Yes, so while you were alive, you did not want to turn to the best police officers for help and tell everything in life so that they help you, but when you die, then let's immediately send out videos. Guys, I'm already dead, but you'll finish my job for me. And it turns out if the captain had been dead for 4 years, his daughter would have sold his laptop, or I would have reinstalled the binder on it, then Mike and Marcus would not have received the message. This is how much of an idiot you need to be to come up with such an unreliable way to deliver a message, although, considering that the captain has always been a fucker, this is not surprising. And Cap, in case the video is not watched by Batboys but by evil muties, leaves a mystery the beginning which stores a full-fledged video. Yes, it's too easy to hire a lawyer in advance who will give the video to the boys at the right moment. It was necessary to come up with a quest to find the right person. It's good that the guys get it right away that we are talking about a hacker from the first part. The hacker, like Cap, is not looking for easy ways and hid the video in some secret ass, also does not directly say which one, and was just about to finally report how he loses touch with the brain, and McBride does not touch the boys because killing cops is too noisy and harms business, but at the same time I drag 2 armed fighters into the club who immediately try to make the cops dead. McBride generally abandons his own and dumps to wait for them in the car, when 3 against 2 would be much more effective, especially when one of the cops is messing around with bullshit and flanking them how not to do. And when Marcus rushes into the open, McBride's fighters, being on a hill, cannot get into him and stupidly dump, and Mike right at the wrong moment. An attack of aggravated pants occurred, causing stupor, and Marcus, who is already tied up 1 shooter, rushes to save the frozen carry fan, and it's Chivka again, brothers in fucking. Immediately, the cops accidentally find on one of the screens of the Curico Club, which connects a full video from the captain, where he gives the address of the warehouse where the evidence for the officials working for the cartel lies. And while the youngsters take the evidence, Mike makes arrangements with the prosecutor to bring his son to Miami, because he was assassinated because that he can identify McBride, and the prosecutor just takes Mike's word for it and gives the go-ahead to transport a dangerous terrorist who himself told Mike that he could identify someone there, and, as it turns out later, the prosecutor is the rat of the cartel, and instead, in order to refuse to transport Armand and send more murderers to prison, he somehow arranges with the Federal Marshal Services so that leftist types, including McBride himself, receive permission to board the service plane where a dangerous terrorist is being transported. That is, the prosecutor and McBride have the opportunity to hijack a military helicopter, cook up everything that Mike killed everyone here for his son, but they do not have such an opportunity to hire normal killers who would kill Armand right in prison. And even here, having the full advantage of the element of surprise, they shit themselves, because unarmed 55-year-olds, the cops turned out to be cooler than armed healthy mercenaries. But McBride also undermines the helicopter's propeller, somehow managing to plant explosives on a military helicopter inside the hull under the engine. That's how he was able to do it. It was necessary to gain access to the helicopter at the airfield, carry explosives with him, disassemble the helicopter body, put a bomb under the propeller, and put everything back together. Like Mike, the helicopter turns on all axes. Not only does it stand still as welded, but also with his bare hands he managed to hold a steel cage with an Armand, the total weight of which is 200 kilos. That's what it means when you save a family. And when Mike does end, Marcus replaces him at once, who also ignores both the weight of the cage and the frenzied rotation of the helicopter, and this one is even steeper after a heart attack. The multifiber cable breaks, but Marcus's hand is not there. Well, as soon as Armand is saved, he immediately returns the debt because he certainly knows how to control a military helicopter. The main thing is that he tore off sharply as his lever, and that's it, except he doesn't have a flight certificate from Captain Marvel. Let's see, but something cooler. You guys have heard, you want to learn how to fly, look for a drug cartel. It turns out that the word pilot and drug dealer are synonyms. The conveniently formed pond, of course, acts as a blow softener, and all 3 without a single fracture, having robbed some rednecks. while on the wanted list, returned to Miami, because Judy was put on the wanted list, who dreamed of hunting her father's killer for 4 years, and when such a chance fell, having equipment and people at hand, she allowed fugitives from the forest are free to get to the city, and since the marshals are doing their job badly, McBride makes an attractive mailing list through the WhatsApp bandit group, but this does not help her, and the men calmly chill in a stolen pickup truck around the city, and in parallel they begin to throw in the first probing for the rehabilitation of the murderer Armando, on which there is nowhere to put samples. An honest Mike, of course, just in case, has his own criminal stash which can help with money and weapons, but the stash for help asks Dadia Sherbakov to do it, and when their lives are at stake and Mike is still that Jupiter terrorist in life and polishing a cap is not the first time for him, he pretends to be a saint and merges. You see, he's married now when there's work for 5 minutes. Well, since Sherbakov is not shining, Nitschke decides to raise money because the cool cops, just in case, did not guess that Mike alone would go to the muddy woman and Armando and Marcus stayed on the street. Well, the first crowd of degenerates did not even tie up the bet boys. They also go out on the lawn when 5 million can a bunch of competitors will abruptly appear, who are the same cretins as the first ones, when the boys are trapped in a pickup truck, and they give 5 lambs because of the dead. These communicate with them there, giving time to come up with a plan for tactical regrouping. Here, as if from the back on skis, Federal Marshal Judy joins the chase, who sees the goal and sees no obstacles, and after the chase, which was easier than a rectal candle, the whole wanted Writing brothers falls in with young colleagues who do not mind at all that 2 wanted cops and a fugitive terrorist have come to them, and according to, in fact, they were made accomplices because for the sake of 2 colleagues, it is always prestigious to fly into bunks, and Dorn is also a first-class hacker, and he organized a police server right at home, from where you can connect to any databases, cameras, and even YouTube. It is relevant. Armand finds a photo of McBride in Cap's documents, which means this is 100% evidence of the captain's innocence, and you can give up, that is, the words of the terrorist that McBride is involved in everything will miraculously stop all court cases against the captain and reset Armand's escape, the death of the helicopter crew and the criminal cases of Mike and Marcus. Only the prosecutor warms his ears nearby and immediately merges everything to McBride, and he decides to take Mike and Marcus's loved ones hostage for safety, but he manages to warn the Special Forces kid, and a John Wick-style cord carries a whole squad of shit raiders, which McBride found in a nearby hangout. That's just in reality I run head-on with such tactics, as if they were pouring free beer here, and not working from cover from a distance. Now I would not salute my father-in-law, but would repaint the floor with my brains. Okay for the soul, not honor, but a military greeting. But here Mike does not have a son-in-law at home, and his wife, along with their daughter Judy, become those for whom they will have to arrange the final batch, and McBride is right farcical. Of the 2 options whose house he chose the one where there were purely women, and not the one where the wild marine lives. Armando is undoubtedly ready to exchange his carcass for Mike's wife, but Botek has become too attached to his son, a drug dealer, a terrorist, for a day. Mike informs the boss that her boyfriend is a prosecutor, overheard their last conversation and leaked all the information to McBride. Why now they are in full ass, and the chief of police once such a thing went. No, he would take a goat at gunpoint and leave. He burns with restless eyes, and the prosecutor understands everything and still starts knocking right in front of her, only finally betrays himself, and when you never know with whom he is writing there, everything will still have to be proved. He tries to kill the chief of police. What exactly did he secure for himself? The article. Rita was lucky that the city of Miami has 500,000 inhabitants, by local standards a village of 3 houses, and the youngsters managed to arrive, although they were next to Mike a minute ago, and when you need to keep your mouth shut behind the bread receiver, the prosecutor, no, it has not yet been proven nabet what is said, how in spirit he merges everything on himself, so that the cops write it on a dictaphone and make fake voices through the neural network, and ask McBride to wait at the base until he arrives for them, and so the wanted cops easily acquire all the necessary military equipment for the assault, because now the police chief Rita is on their side, who apparently can just come to the station and verbally ask for a whole arsenal, and McBride, who is not wanted and can sit quietly in the city, settled in the ass of the world in the woods in an abandoned park attractions where crocodiles are also found, but the most convenient place for the final cut. It was only when McBride sensed an ambush that he somehow got out under the cover of the hostages, when he could stay inside the building and just send his people to check on the prosecutor and the plane, but Mike, when he had a great chance for a headshot, is again covered by an attack of shit pants, and a simple operation goes to hell. Well, when the heat started, the cops systematically begin to demolish the professional military who not only shoot poorly, but also forgot to them that it's time to have an electronic warfare device against drones everywhere. And when the enemy turns out to be next to you through the assembly gluing without even shooting, and others bend from the blow in advance. Why not fight like that, especially when you can even dodge an underbarrel grenade, and a shot through gas cylinder turns into your personal homing missile. And when McBride still has hostages, it's unclear why the fight continues, when it was supposed to end right away. Like McBride would have shot Mike's wife in the knee, and all the cops would have immediately laid down their weapons, but when you have the advantage, it's better to stupidly retreat and watch your people go to waste. In general, I went from the shooters who can't even hurt anyone. And here, by the way, is a cool scene with Smith, which was filmed from one take, hanging a cunningly crazy camera drive on him. But now McBride, having the advantage of a human shield, could just shoot the men, but as the last Ibanez decided to show off with a child's grenade, which does not cause any damage, although what is there a grenade? There the men get to the giant alligator and he gets pussy from Mike in a second, and after the crocodile the men completely relaxed and split up like a cheap slasher, and McBride gets a second hostage. After that, senseless verbal anonymity immediately begins, as in the second part. And why the hell do you do it when you could shoot everyone and go into the sunset? Because when you have two living barriers, it's okay to hide behind them. You didn't have enough brains. The chief of police, Rita, who is also sitting at the table, is also a cheat, and from the first shot from the barrel, she knocks out the treating plane with the prosecutor. Well, the prosecutor would not give up and, thanks to the connections, get away with it. Like a slave to the screenwriter, grabs the gun, which, through Leonid's blow, flies to dinner to Cheburashka's friend. Armand saves so far Judy's daughter, but in order for the girl to put in a good word about him in front of her mother, he allows himself to be cut up, although he scattered more serious bores in prison. And since only Judy is missing here, she just happened to ride a helicopter nearby and finds her daughter from Armand by the scenic smell, and then the classics. And as I said 4 years ago, Dad the cop will do everything to keep the criminal son out of jail. After all, Daddy was in a hurry, and if the ruthless killer helps in the investigation of other cases, he will be released even before he needs Viagra. And so honest policeman Mike releases Chella, who has several life sentences, simply because he once jumped out of his egg when, in fairness, Mike had to return Armand to prison and just testify that they say this amigo here assisted in the destruction of a dangerous gang, for which he might have the deadline was slightly shortened. And here a bunch of lawmen did not act according to the law, but according to concepts. Welcome to the adult world, cunts.